The massive alien ship cast a shadow over New York City as it descended through Earth's atmosphere. Its smooth, silvery surface reflected the morning sunlight, creating patterns that danced across the skyscrapers below. On the ground, Captain James Wright stood at attention, his dress uniform perfectly pressed, while trying to hide his racing heart. "Remember," Admiral Stone whispered beside him, "we represent all of humanity today." The landing platform hummed as the alien vessel touched down. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, a doorway appeared in the ship's seamless hull. 3 tall figures emerged, their bodies covered in flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. The aliens moved with unnatural grace. Each step appeared carefully measured, as if they were too important to simply walk like normal beings. The tallest one, wearing deep blue robes with golden trim, stepped forward. "I am Speaker Davis of the Galactic Council," it announced in perfect English. Its voice had an odd musical quality, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We have come to evaluate Earth's readiness for membership in our Grand Alliance." Captain Wright noticed how the alien's mouth didn't quite match its words. Some kind of translation technology, he guessed. Admiral Stone stepped forward and offered Earth's formal greeting. The evaluation began immediately. For 3 days, the Council representatives toured Earth's major cities, industries, and military installations. They showed polite interest in most human achievements, but their true colors emerged during the military demonstration. At the White Sands Missile Range, Earth's military leaders had prepared their finest display of human warfare technology. Fighter jets screamed overhead, tanks rolled across the desert, and infantry demonstrations showed the precision of human military training. Speaker Davis watched it all with an expression that looked increasingly like amusement. When the demonstration reached the weapons exhibition, things took a turn for the worse. "And this," Captain Wright said, holding up an M4 carbine, "is one of our standard infantry weapons. It uses chemical propellant to launch projectiles at supersonic speeds, capable of penetrating most known materials." A strange sound filled the air. It took Wright a moment to realize the aliens were laughing. Not just chuckling. They were doubled over, their musical voices creating an orchestra of mockery. "Projectile weapons," Speaker Davis managed between fits of laughter. "You mean you still throw little pieces of metal at each other?" Wright's face burned, but he maintained his professional demeanor. "Our ballistic weapons have proven highly effective in combat situations. The kinetic energy—" "My dear Captain," Speaker Davis interrupted, wiping something like tears from its eyes, "the Council hasn't used such primitive weapons in over 10,000 years. Observe." The alien pulled out a small cylinder from its robes. With a fluid motion, it pointed at a target dummy hundreds of yards away. A beam of pure light erupted from the device, and the dummy simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no sound. It simply vanished. "That is a basic civilian defense weapon," Speaker Davis said smugly. "Our actual military technology is far beyond your comprehension." Wright gripped his rifle tighter, knuckles white under his gloves. He'd spent his entire career mastering these weapons, learning their intricacies, teaching others how to use them effectively. To have them dismissed as toys stung deeper than he wanted to admit. The demonstration continued, but the aliens' attitude had soured the atmosphere. They barely paid attention to the remaining presentations, instead whispering among themselves and occasionally breaking into fresh fits of laughter. That evening, in the secure briefing room, Admiral Stone faced his dejected officers. "They've made their opinion clear," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "But remember this moment, everyone. Remember how they laughed." Wright stared at the rifle he brought to the demonstration, its surface still gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Something nagged at his mind. Something about the way the aliens had demonstrated their weapon. "Sir," he said suddenly, "did you notice they only showed us weapons that completely destroyed their targets?" Admiral Stone raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "Well, sir, in actual combat, you don't always want to vaporize everything. Sometimes you need to disable, to wound, to penetrate specific points. Our primitive weapons can do that. Can theirs? A slow smile spread across the Admiral's face. Interesting observation, Captain. Very interesting indeed. I think we need to learn more about their technology and their weaknesses. As the meeting concluded, Wright took one last look at his rifle. Let them laugh, he thought. They might not be laughing for long. 3 weeks after the demonstration, Captain Wright sat in a dimly lit conference room at the Pentagon, watching the Council's official assessment video play on the large screen. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten in his hand as Speaker Davis's musical voice filled the room. Earth is hereby classified as a Class 3 pre-FTL civilization, the alien announced. While they have achieved basic spaceflight and show promising development in some areas, their continued reliance on primitive kinetic weapons makes them unsuitable for full Council membership. Admiral Stone paused the video. The room stayed quiet for a moment, filled with the kind of silence that comes before a storm. "There's more," Stone said, pressing play again. The screen showed detailed diagrams of Council energy weapons. Speaker Davis appeared again, this time speaking directly to the camera. "As a gesture of good faith, we are sharing basic information about proper weapons technology. Perhaps this will help humanity understand the vast gap between their current state and true civilization." Wright leaned forward, studying the diagrams carefully. The aliens used something called plasma containment fields to create their energy weapons. Each shot was basically a tiny sun, held together by magnetic forces until it hit its target. "Interesting," Dr. Miller said from her seat next to Wright. The weapons researcher had been taking notes throughout the entire presentation. "Notice how they never mention defensive systems." "That's not the only thing they never mention," Wright added. "Look at the casualty reports from their recent conflicts. The numbers don't make sense." He pulled out a tablet and showed it to the others. In their last 3 wars, they lost almost 80% of troops hit by any weapon, even glancing blows. That's an incredibly high death rate. Admiral Stone nodded slowly. "Dr. Miller, what are you thinking?" The scientist adjusted her glasses. "Their weapons are incredibly powerful, yes. But they're also binary. Either they hit and destroy everything, or they miss completely. There's no in-between." She paused, tapping her pen against her notepad. "And something about their physical structure makes them extremely vulnerable to any damage." The meeting continued for hours as they studied every piece of information the Council had provided. A pattern began to emerge. The aliens had evolved on low-gravity worlds. Their bodies were more fragile than humans, and they had developed their technology to compensate for these weaknesses. "They're not stronger than us," Wright realized. "They're just better at total destruction. But in real combat, that's not always what you want." Admiral Stone stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Pentagon courtyard where soldiers were doing their morning exercises. "Captain, I'm giving you a new assignment. Take Dr. Miller and a small team. Go to the Mars testing facility. Find out exactly what our weapons can do against their technology." "Sir?" Wright asked, surprised at the sudden order. The Council provided specifications for their basic shield technology, supposedly to show us how hopeless our weapons are against them. "I want to put that to the test." Dr. Miller was already gathering her notes, excitement visible on her face. "Their shields are optimized for energy weapons, designed to absorb or deflect massive power spikes. But kinetic energy, that's different. That's physics at its most basic." "One more thing," Admiral Stone added, his voice deadly serious. "The Council has restricted Earth from joining until we evolve past projectile weapons. They're watching our major weapons factories, our military bases, our official development programs." Wright understood immediately. "But they're not watching Mars." "Exactly. As far as they're concerned, the Mars facility is just a basic research station. Keep it that way." As they left the meeting, Wright caught Dr. Miller looking at the diagrams again. "Something on your mind, Doctor?" She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that said she knew something others didn't. Their shields are like a thick bubble designed to stop a flood, but sometimes a single needle can pop a bubble more easily than a tidal wave. Wright thought about his rifle, about the physics of a simple bullet, about how some of humanity's most basic weapons work by focusing enormous force on a very small point. Maybe, just maybe, humanity's primitive weapons weren't so primitive after all. And soon, the Council would learn it the hard way. "Pack your bags," Dr. Wright said. "We're going to Mars." The emergency alarm blared through the colony of New Armstrong, the first human settlement on Europa. Red lights flashed across the ice-covered dome as people ran for shelter. Above the colony, 3 sleek alien ships descended from the darkness of space. In his office on Mars, Captain Wright watched the live feed with clenched fists. Pirates. He spat the word like it was poison. Council ally pirates. Dr. Miller stood beside him, her face pale in the blue light of the screen. 6 months had passed since they began their secret weapons testing, and now they were watching their worst fears come true. "They're using Council weapons," she noted, pointing at the energy beams cutting through the colony's outer defenses. The pirate ships moved with deadly grace, their energy weapons turning the colony's protective barriers into steam. The communication system crackled to life. "This is New Armstrong. We are under attack. Requesting immediate assistance." The voice was filled with panic. "Our weapons are having no effect. I repeat, our weapons are having no effect." Wright grabbed the microphone. "New Armstrong, this is Mars Command. Hold on. Help is coming." But even as he said it, he knew they wouldn't arrive in time. The nearest Earth ships were hours away. The pirates' message played across all frequencies. "Primitive humans, surrender your colony and resources. Your weapons cannot harm us. The Council will not help you. You are not worthy of their protection." They watched in helpless rage as the pirates landed. Their boarding parties, protected by personal energy shields that glowed with a faint blue light, moved through the colony's corridors. The colonists' bullets bounced harmlessly off the shields, just as the Council had bragged they would. 23 dead, Dr. Miller reported quietly, reading the incoming casualty reports. 47 wounded. They're taking everything of value. Wright slammed his fist on the desk. "We need more time. The new ammunition isn't ready yet." Actually, Dr. Miller pulled up their latest test results. The latest batch showed promising results. The tungsten core rounds penetrated the test shields at over 80% effectiveness. "But we haven't done full field testing. We're out of time, Captain." She pointed at another screen showing more pirate ships gathering near Saturn. "They're getting bolder. Next time it could be Mars." Wright nodded slowly. He pressed a button on his desk. "Admiral Stone, we need to accelerate the timeline." The Admiral's voice came through clear and tired. "The Council just responded to our request for help. Want to guess what they said?" "Let me guess. We need to abandon our primitive weapons and embrace proper civilization first." "Got it in one. They suggested we submit to temporary Council oversight for our own protection." The disgust in Stone's voice was clear. "How close are we?" Wright looked at Dr. Miller, who nodded firmly. "We can have the first batch of new ammunition ready in 2 weeks. But, sir, we'll be breaking the Council's technology restrictions." "They broke their own rules first," Stone replied. "By allowing these pirates to attack us while denying us protection, they'd violated at least 6 sections of their own membership protocols. Documentation has been filed." Through the windows of his office, Wright could see the massive hangar where Earth's newest ships were being fitted with modified railguns. The weapons looked primitive compared to Council technology, but looks could be deceiving. "One more thing," Dr. Miller added. "We discovered something interesting about their shield technology. It takes them 3 seconds to reset their shields after a major impact. 3 seconds where they're completely vulnerable." Wright remembered the demonstration months ago, how Speaker Davis had laughed at human weapons. He thought about the dead colonists on Europa, killed because the Council thought humans were too primitive to protect. 2 weeks, he said firmly. In 2 weeks, we show them exactly how dangerous primitive weapons can be. As if to emphasize his words, another alarm blared. More pirate ships had been detected near Jupiter. They were getting closer, bolder, thinking Earth was helpless. Wright watched his teams loading the new tungsten core ammunition into testing chambers. Soon, very soon, those pirates would learn that laughing at human weapons was a deadly mistake. Send word to all colonies, he ordered. Help is coming. And this time, we're bringing the right tools for the job. The Martian testing facility echoed with the sound of gunfire. Through the reinforced observation window, Captain Wright watched as another modified bullet slammed into the captured pirate shield. The shield flickered, buzzed, and then failed completely. Time to failure, 1.2 seconds, Dr. Miller announced, her eyes fixed on the computer readings. That's our best result yet. Behind them, Admiral Stone watched the replay in slow motion. The new tungsten core bullet, spinning at incredible speeds, hit the shield like a tiny drill. Instead of bouncing off, it created a focused point of pressure that overwhelmed the shield's energy distribution system. Show me the comparison, Stone ordered. Dr. Miller pulled up 2 videos, side by side. The first showed a standard bullet hitting an alien shield. It bounced off harmlessly, just like in the Europa attack. The second showed their new round in action. The difference was dramatic. It's simple physics, she explained, pointing to the data. Their shields are designed to absorb and disperse energy weapons, like spreading out the force of a punch. But our new rounds focus all their force on a point smaller than a pinhead. It's like using a needle instead of a hammer. Wright picked up one of the new rounds from the testing table. It looked almost normal, except for its slightly darker color and extra weight. How many can we make? That's the best part, Dr. Miller smiled. We've simplified the design. Any ammunition factory can produce these with minimal retooling. We just need to keep the Council from realizing what we're doing. Stone nodded approvingly. What about the larger versions? In response, Dr. Miller changed the feed to the outdoor testing range. A modified tank rolled into position, its main gun aimed at a larger version of the alien shield. The gun fired, and the shield didn't just fail, it shattered completely. The math stays the same no matter the scale, she explained. We've even adapted the design for ship-mounted railguns. The energy requirements are actually lower than the Council's weapons, which means more shots per charge. Wright remembered how the pirate ships had torn through the Europa colony's defenses, and the ship-to-ship tests. See for yourself. The screen showed footage from the previous day's test. A small drone ship, equipped with a salvaged alien shield, hung in Mars orbit. The Earth test ship fired a single modified round from its railgun. The result was spectacular. The shield collapsed instantly, leaving the drone completely vulnerable. 3 things make this work, Dr. Miller explained, pulling up the technical data. First, the tungsten core maintains its shape under extreme pressure. Second, the round spins fast enough to act like a drill. Third, and most importantly, the aliens never expected anyone to try this approach. Because they think kinetic weapons are primitive. Wright finished. Exactly. They built their defenses to stop energy weapons because that's all they've faced for thousands of years. It's like they forgot the basic laws of physics while chasing more advanced technology. Admiral Stone studied the production charts. How long until we can equip our entire fleet? 2 days for all ships in the Mars Defense Fleet, Wright answered. Maybe 2 weeks for every military ship in the solar system. We've been secretly stockpiling the materials here on Mars. And the Council still thinks we're running a basic research station. Their observation satellites only detect the power signatures they expect from a small colony. All our testing is done underground or on the far side. A technician rushed in with new data. More pirate ships had been detected near Saturn, moving toward the human mining colonies. They were following the same pattern as the Europa attack. Perfect timing, Wright said grimly. We need a real combat test anyway. Admiral Stone looked at the tactical display, then at the new ammunition being loaded into the Mars Defense Fleet. Captain Wright, prepare your ships. When those pirates attack, I want them to learn exactly how primitive our weapons are. Yes, sir. Wright paused. Should we inform the Council? Stone's smile was cold. No. Let them keep laughing. For now. In the testing range below, another round slammed through another shield. This time, no one was laughing at all. The pirate fleet appeared above Mars like a swarm of angry wasps. 12 ships, their hulls gleaming with the same silvery material the Council used, dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Their energy weapons powered up, creating beautiful but deadly patterns of light against the red Martian sky. Captain Wright stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Thunder, watching the tactical display. His fleet of 8 ships waited behind Mars' largest moon, Phobos, hidden from the pirate sensors. This is Pirate Command to Mars Colony, a harsh voice broadcast on all frequencies. Your pathetic defenses failed at Europa. Surrender now, and we might let your people live. Wright pressed his communication button. All ships, remember your training. Wait for my signal. He turned to his weapons officer. Are the new rounds loaded? Yes, sir. All railguns charged and ready. Dr. Miller's voice came through his private channel. Captain, their shields are at full power, just like the ones we tested against. The pirates, growing impatient with Mars' silence, launched their first attack. Energy beams lashed out, targeting the colony's outer defense platforms. The platforms, empty of people and running on automatic, exploded spectacularly. Such primitive defenses, the pirate leader laughed. Watch how real weapons work. Wright allowed himself a small smile. All ships, execute pattern Delta. Show them how primitive we can be. The Thunder and its sister ships burst from behind Phobos, their engines burning hot. The pirates, caught by surprise, took several seconds to react, seconds they couldn't afford to lose. Fire, Wright ordered calmly. 8 railguns fired simultaneously. 8 specially designed tungsten core rounds crossed the space between the fleets in less than a second. The pirates' shields flared brilliant blue as they tried to stop the incoming rounds. They failed. 4 pirate ships erupted in explosions as the rounds punched through their shields like they weren't even there. The remaining pirates, shocked by the sudden destruction of their companions, broke formation in confusion. Impossible. The pirate leader screamed over the comm. Your weapons are primitive. They cannot harm us. Reload and fire at will, Wright commanded, ignoring the pirates' ranting. Target their engines where possible. The Council might want some survivors to question. The space around Mars lit up with energy beams as the pirates returned fire, but their shots were panicked, uncoordinated. The human ships, their own shields reinforced based on Dr. Miller's research, weathered the storm. 3 more pirate ships died in the next volley. Their mighty shields, the same technology that had made them invulnerable at Europa, might as well have been tissue paper against the new human weapons. This is your last warning. Wright broadcast to the remaining pirates. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. The pirates responded by trying to flee. 1 ship exploded as its damaged engine overloaded. 2 more fell to carefully aimed shots from Wright's fleet. The last 2 managed to jump away into faster-than-light travel, leaving their dead and dying companions behind. Damage report, Wright called out. Minor shield damage to the Stormfront and Lightning. His tactical officer reported. No casualties. 8 pirate ships destroyed. 2 escaped. Dr. Miller's voice was jubilant over the comm. The rounds performed even better than our tests predicted. Did you see how their shields collapsed? Wright allowed his crew a moment to celebrate before bringing them back to focus. Rescue teams to the disabled pirate ships. I want prisoners and data. And send the battle records to Admiral Stone. Sir, his communication officer interrupted. We're getting a priority message from Earth. The Council. They're demanding an emergency meeting. Wright looked out at the debris field that had been the pirate fleet. Somewhere out there, Two surviving ships were racing to tell their council allies about humanity's primitive weapons. "Send them our response," he ordered. "Tell them we'll be happy to discuss our defensive capabilities with them." Very, very happy. As rescue operations began, Wright couldn't help but remember Speaker Davis's laughter during that first demonstration. He wondered if the council would still be laughing after they saw this battle footage. Somehow, he doubted it. The council's emergency meeting chamber was chaos. Hundreds of alien representatives shouted and gestured at the massive display showing the Mars battle footage. Speaker Davis stood in the center, watching humanity's primitive weapons tear through the galaxy's best shield technology, like it wasn't even there. "Impossible," one council member shouted, their musical voice cracking. "They must have used illegal technology." "Analysis confirms they used only kinetic weapons," another member responded, fear clear in their tone. "Simple projectiles, just like they showed us during the demonstration." Captain Wright stood at the chamber's entrance with Admiral Stone, watching the council members panic. The human delegation had been kept waiting for 3 hours while the council argued among themselves. Now, they were about to present their case. "Notice how they're all standing well away from us," Stone whispered. The closest council member was at least 30 feet away, and many were sneaking nervous glances at the human's sidearms. A loud chime silenced the chamber. Speaker Davis, looking far less confident than during the first contact, approached the central podium. "Captain James Wright," Davis announced, the musical quality of their voice now trembling slightly. "You stand accused of violating council law by developing weapons of mass destruction." Wright stepped forward, his boots echoing in the sudden silence. "We developed nothing new, Speaker Davis. We simply improved our existing weapons, the same ones you laughed at 6 months ago." He reached into his pocket, making several council members flinch, and pulled out one of the tungsten core rounds. "This is what destroyed your impenetrable shields. A simple bullet, redesigned with better materials and engineering. No exotic technology, no energy weapons, just basic physics." But our shields," Davis stammered. Dr. Miller, who had been quietly setting up her presentation, spoke up. "Your shields are amazing at stopping energy weapons. You spent thousands of years making them better and better at absorbing and dispersing energy blasts. But you forgot something very basic." She brought up a diagram showing a shield impacted by both an energy weapon and one of the new rounds. Energy can be absorbed and redirected, but focused kinetic force, applied to a small enough point, that had to go somewhere. Your shields had no answer for it, because you thought the concept was too primitive to be a threat. The council chamber erupted again as representatives began shouting questions and demands. Some called for human technology to be banned. Others wanted to buy it immediately. Admiral Stone raised his hand for silence. "We have no interest in banning or selling anything. What we want is full council membership, as is our right after defending ourselves successfully against pirate attacks." "But your weapons," Davis protested weakly, "are exactly what we said they were," Wright finished. "The only difference is now you know they work. The pirates learned that the hard way." He played the final footage from the Mars battle. The chamber watched in stunned silence as human ships systematically disabled the pirate fleet. The Council's most advanced shields failed against weapons they had dismissed as primitive just months ago. "We've uploaded full documentation of the pirate attacks on our colonies," Stone continued. "Attacks that happened after we requested Council protection. Attacks that used Council technology. Attacks that killed human civilians." The implications hung heavy in the air. The Council had not only dismissed humanity, but had allowed pirates to attack them with advanced technology. Now those same pirates had been decimated by the weapons they thought were harmless. "The Council will need time to discuss this development," Davis said finally. "Of course," Wright replied with a small smile. "We'll wait outside. Oh, and Speaker Davis, remember how you laughed at our weapons demonstration? How do you find them now?" Davis didn't answer, but their silence spoke volumes. As the human delegation left the chamber, They could hear the council breaking into panicked discussion groups. "How long do you think they'll talk?" Wright asked Admiral Stone. "Not long," Stone replied, patting the sidearm at his hip. "They just learned that the galaxy's balance of power isn't what they thought it was. And right now, they're all wondering who else might be developing primitive weapons." Behind them, the council chamber buzzed with fear and excitement. Nobody was laughing anymore. 1 year after the Mars battle, Captain Wright stood at the podium in the council's main chamber. The room looked very different now. Mixed teams of humans and aliens worked at various stations, and on every council member's hip sat a new standard-issue weapon, a human-designed hybrid combining kinetic and energy technology. "The Joint Defense Initiative has exceeded all expectations," Wright reported to the assembled council. "Over 30 species have now adopted the new combined weapon systems. Piracy is down 80% across council space." Speaker Davis, now serving as the liaison between Earth and the council, nodded in agreement. The former critic of primitive weapons now carried a modified Earth pistol and had become one of humanity's strongest supporters. "The humans have proven that true advancement comes not from dismissing the old, but from improving it," Davis announced. Their musical voice carried none of its former arrogance. "We forgot this lesson in our rush to seem advanced. They reminded us that basic physics cannot be ignored." Dr. Miller stepped forward next, bringing up displays showing the new hybrid technology. The weapons looked sleek and advanced, but at their core, they still used the same principles as the first guns humanity had created. "By combining kinetic penetrators with energy delivery systems, we've created weapons that can adapt to any combat situation," she explained. "The kinetic component bypasses shields, while the energy payload ensures maximum effect. Simple, reliable, and effective." The council members nodded in approval. Many of them had seen the new weapons in action during the recent campaign against the remaining pirate strongholds. The pirates' once feared shields had proven useless against the combined human council technology. Admiral Stone, now Earth's senior representative to the council, took the floor, but perhaps the most important lesson wasn't about weapons at all. It was about humility, and the danger of dismissing ideas simply because they seem primitive. The chamber's main screen showed images from the past year, human engineers teaching council species about kinetic weapons, alien scientists sharing shield technology, combined fleets protecting trade routes. What had started with mockery had evolved into one of the most successful cooperations in council history. "The pirates taught us all something valuable," Wright added. "They showed us that no single approach is perfect. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, shields, they all have strengths and weaknesses. True strength comes from understanding and using them all." He held up one of the original tungsten core rounds that had changed everything. "This simple bullet did more than defeat pirates. It broke down barriers between our species. It reminded us all that intelligence doesn't always mean complexity." The council voted unanimously to make the human-designed hybrid weapons the standard across all member species. More importantly, they established new protocols requiring all technological innovations to be evaluated on their actual merit, not their perceived level of advancement. As the session ended, Davis approached Wright privately. "I need to say something," the alien began, their voice humming with emotion. "When I first saw your weapons, I laughed. I thought humans were primitive, dangerous children playing with toys they didn't understand." Wright waited patiently as Davis struggled with the words. "I was wrong," Davis finally said. "Humans didn't just understand their weapons, they understood fundamental principles that we have forgotten. My laughter was born of ignorance, and it almost cost us everything." "The past is past," Wright replied kindly. "What matters is what we build together going forward." Looking out at the chamber where humans and aliens worked side by side, Wright felt pride not just in humanity's achievements, but in how they had changed the council itself. The organization had become more open, more willing to consider new ideas, even if they seemed primitive at first. Dr. Miller joined them. carrying designs for the next generation of hybrid weapons, ready to show them our new ideas. She asked with a smile. Are you sure they're ready? Wright asked, returning the smile. Some of these designs are pretty primitive. Davis actually laughed, not the mocking laugh from their first meeting, but a genuine sound of joy and friendship. Captain Wright, I don't think anyone will ever make that mistake again. Now show us what else humanity has been keeping primitive. As they walked to the research labs together, Wright reflected that sometimes the best way to advance wasn't to abandon the old ways, but to understand them better than anyone else. Humanity had proved that, and the galaxy was better for it. No one was laughing at human guns anymore. They were too busy learning how to use them.